Can start first.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on today's show. My name is Blacknificent. I am excited to be having this conversation with you today. We will be talking about schooling and education under the COVID-19 pandemic. And what is very interesting about this conversation today is that we are hearing from, what they call the horse's mouth. We're hearing directly from students or learners who are affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And we just want to find out from them how the experience has been like. It's important for us to kind of reflect on how this education period under the pandemic has been like, so that we can kind of get informed or become more conscious about the challenges that are befalling learners, parents, teachers, and just every person involved in the education system. As we all know that I think the COVID-19 pandemic is, I can say, the largest school or education disruption in the history of our democracy in South Africa. We haven't been affected this much. So it's good to kind of reflect on how are we coping as a nation, and how are learners doing, how are parents doing, and try to use that information to navigate this very uncertain period in our time. So in order to have that conversation, I have three lovely ladies today who will assist me. And thank you so much, ladies, for agreeing to do it, to do this with me and have this conversation with me. And my name is Blacknificent, for those who don't know, and I'll be your host for this evening. So yeah, ladies, so I think we can start by easing into the conversation, really, by just give us a brief introduction of yourselves, give us your names, what level of school, what level in your schooling period are you in, and where do you come from, and anything you'd like to add on that. So we'll start with Thando, then Nompumelelo, then Gia. Just a brief introduction of, yeah.
All right, good evening. My name is Thando Shabalala. Currently a first-year student at the University of Pretoria, and I'm from Centurion in Pretoria. Okay.
Wow, Thando, nice to know that you are a university student. So you were in high school in 2020. So we'll be talking about your 2020 experience. That's lovely. Nompumelelo.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Nompumelelo Skosana, and I'm currently a first year at the University of Pretoria. I'm doing my BCom Accounting Sciences, and I am from eMalahleni.
All right. Where in eMalahleni are you from?
I'm from Iznambeni, extension 11.
Oh, it's like a location area, ne?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Gia.
evening. My name is Kiamukhetsi Manama, and I matriculated last year. I'm currently taking a gap year, and I grew up Komamilodi, but I've been living in urban areas for the past 3 years.
Right. So I like how you responded to that, because the purpose of asking where you come from is just to understand whether you come from a rural or an urban area, for us to understand how then also your community experience affected learning and teaching during the COVID pandemic. I understand as well that I'm speaking to people who only did their matric last year. So we're going to be talking about the experience last year, but that is also lovely because 2020 was the first year of experiencing the pandemic. So I think it's also going to be beneficial in kind of weighing how well we are responding to the issues regarding education then. Right. Just also to find out from you guys, what type of schools did you go to? You know, we have Model C schools, we have independent private schools, and then we have government schools. So what type of school did you go to? And yeah, more or less, if you don't mind sharing this, how much was your cost of schooling on an overall, more or less? You don't have to be exact, but yeah. Let's start with Gia this time.
Okay, so I went to what's called a Model C school. It's a public fee-paying school. My school fees was around 25,000. I'm not too sure on the exact figure. And for the most part, you get your textbooks for free. You have to provide your own learning materials, so you have your own stationery, your own workbooks, and all of that. Travel costs, we live in the exact same neighborhood that my school is in. So I didn't actually spend on travel costs. I think my mom took me to school, so that wasn't like a real expense for me. And yeah, that was it. I don't think we could say more than 30,000 just on last year.
Lovely. So the 25,000 rand is for the whole year, right? Just to be
Yeah,
clear.
for the school fees, yeah.
All right. So you're saying that they provided you with
Just the school fees,
textbooks,
yeah.
and then you had to only provide yourselves with other schooling materials. Lovely.
Like your stationery, workbooks.
Sure. I get it. So what about you, Nompumelelo?
Okay, so I went to a 9-fee paying school. It's a local school, like it's basically in the same area where I live in. So we paid nothing, and the only thing that you had to pay for was additional stationery, because they gave us most of the basic stationery and the books and the textbooks.
So did you walk to school?
Yes, I walked to school.
Okay, so it's in the same neighborhood. That is
Yes.
lovely. So you only spent on your study material, and as far as that was outstanding, because I understand that in government schools, they provide you with stationaries as well.
Yes. So like they provided us with stationery such as like pens, pencils, and all of that. So you just had to get your own glue and then like color pens, highlighters, all that stuff. So that's
an encounter thing.
Yeah. So you just had to buy the additional stuff.
All right,
that
sure.
250 something.
All right, no problem. So Tando, tell us about your experience.
So I was in a private school, independent private school, which is in my neighborhood. So it wasn't really a distance going to school. My parents took me to school, but I used to be in a transport, which was prior to COVID-19. They stopped all private transports going to the school because they just tried to contain the amount of COVID infections that could arise at school.
I get.
So
that is interesting as well. Okay, so it was an independent, sorry, come again.
I'm saying it was just parents taking their kids to school and back.
Okay, so like parents took you to school. It was an independent school. What about study materials? Was that provided for you, or did you have to buy it?
So it was basically part of the fees in the beginning of the year. So I'd say annually fees were roughly from like 55,000 Rand to 60,000, if I'm not wrong. And then in January, you pay additional fees like your stationery, or there was a sports levy. There were more levies, including our textbooks. So our textbooks were online, but they have to buy them through a specific portal, if I can say, which was my ebooks. So you pay your textbook levy in the beginning of the year, then they buy the textbooks online and they're able to load them on any device that you're using.
So just to find out, that was already like before COVID-19, you guys already had access to online textbooks.
Yes.
Did you have physical textbooks though, or was it always like online? And from when was that?
It has always
Always
been
been.
yes.
So that means that if they load them to your devices, you come with your devices to school, or certain devices provided to you in school, then you can load the textbooks on there, and then you can go with them to back to home. And
So in the beginning of the year, they always make sure that everyone has a tablet. If you don't have one, you're asked to make a plan,
Buy
or
one.
you can loan one from the school. And that is basically your life at school. If you don't have that,
I get.
You can't be in class if you don't have your tablet, because you're just going to be disrupted. So the tablet was the main source of being able to learn.
Well, that is interesting, and I love your different experiences, guys, and I think that will also be visible in how then you guys experienced the pandemic. How each of you experienced the pandemic. I think that will come out quite well. So, on starting to find out from you guys how your experience was. So in March, when the national lockdown was announced and schools were shut down right initially. So I just want to find out from you guys, when did your schools reopen after the initial shutdown? So we'll start with you, Tando. So after the initial shutdown, I think it was in level 5. All public areas were shut down and schools were, shut down. When did your school commence with its schooling activities after that?
Okay, so I'll split it into two. We physically reopened in June on the 3rd. Yeah, on the 3rd of June in 2020. But when the national lockdown began, we were still learning online. So I would say that I didn't have any break or any holiday the whole of last year, because the minute they shut down everything, school was still going on online.
All right, thank you, Tando, for your answer. So you guys didn't pause. You didn't shut down per se.
Not at all.
All right. Kia, what about you? Okay, let's go to you, Tando. I think Kia might be experiencing some technical glitches. Nompumelelo, when did you reopen after the initial shutdown?
We reopened on the 6th of May after the initial shutdown. And during the break, we only started learning online, and our online was
we first opened in June after the lockdown. I'm not sure on the specific date, but it was around.
All right, I think that was Kia. So Kia, you opened in June. So just Nompumelelo, please just wait for me. So Kia, between the initial lockdown and June, were you guys learning remotely maybe? All right, let's wait for Kia. Nompumelelo, you were saying?
I was saying we opened on the 6th of May, but before that, we're learning through WhatsApp because like they used to
So they
send
sent us work via email, SMS. They sent before we went to lockdown.
All right, thank you, Kia. I get that. So, Kia, you guys were, getting work via email, but you opened officially in June. So, Nompumelelo, you're saying that you opened in May, but between that period, you were getting work via WhatsApp.
Yes, via WhatsApp, and then we did the work, and then you resubmitted via
On WhatsApp.
Yes.
So so the school already has your numbers.
Like we had group chats.
Oh, okay. For every
for
single
subjects.
for all classes and different subjects.
Yes, we had group chats.
Interesting. So thank you, ladies, for that. So I'm going to just also ask as well. What were supportive measures that you received from your school? So already, I mean, we can already sort of like have an idea, especially with Tando. You guys already had an online system working already. But was there any additional support that you received from the school as far as administering your schooling activities was concerned? Did you receive any support? And I mean academic support, right? So let's talk about the initial period where you guys were at home. And Nompumelelo, you were learning via WhatsApp, Kia mostly on email, and Tando, online as usual. What were the additional support systems put in place for you guys to continue smoothly? And this time we'll start with you, Nompumelelo.
Well, I don't think the way like additional support, like an additional support system that was put in place to help us, because the only thing we are a non-paying fee school, so everything government, sometimes things don't work out. So we just had WhatsApp. So we're learning from WhatsApp, everything, resources and stuff. They tried to provide us with additional resources and learning materials for like practices and all that. They provided all of that on WhatsApp. So basically everything that we did on WhatsApp was just the support system they provided.
All right, no, sure. I get it with the limited resources as far as government schools are concerned, because you guys are a no fee paying school, and so there might be limited resources for that. Tando, any additional support?
I think the only additional support was creating longer periods of learning, which really did help. So they didn't restrict us from talking to teachers or consulting online. We were allowed to do that whenever the teachers were available. So even at 9 p.m., I was able to text my teachers and say, okay, I don't understand 1, 2, 3. And it made everything easier. So it was like I was still learning physically.
Okay, so you texted them using your phone, like WhatsApp as well?
Yes.
Okay, Kia, what do you feel about that? Were there any additional support given to you? Yeah. All right. While we wait for Kia, I'm interested in also finding out from you guys in terms of the content coverage. So it was obvious during the lockdown that content coverage was quite very. It was one of the fundamental concerns of the education ministry, and there were concerns around there is no time to to cover all the content in the curriculum of learners. And there were quite many debates about what should be done. You know, some people were talking about, you know, allowing all students to pass grades without learning, and some were talking about cutting the amount of content given to students or focusing it to only relevant, you know, content or themes. Did you guys experience any cuttage of the curriculum from what was initially presented to you at the beginning of the year? The study themes, the units, the subjects. Did you guys feel any watering down, maybe, or striking out of certain contents? You know, so we'll start with you, Nompumelelo.
No content was cut off because they told us we are in our matric year, so we have to finish everything. We wouldn't have a chance to finish the content next year or sometime. So we had to do all the content because even like our exams, our final exams, they still covered the whole content. So they had to cover the whole content, and it was such a short period of time. So it also led to some people deregistering because they felt like the rate of speed at which we're going was overwhelming for them. So they didn't cut anything.
Interesting. No, thank you for that. Tando, did you experience anything? Obviously for you, it would be different because you didn't actually have any time out of school because you continued learning remotely. But what do you feel about that? Was there any watering down, striking out of certain themes in order to cover curriculum?
Not at all. All content was covered. In fact, I feel like we did a lot more because there was so much time that we still had.
Because you guys obviously now, whilst others, you know, were on pause, you guys were continuing and you were learning obviously after hours as well. No, that is interesting. So just tell me quickly about learning procedures after you guys reopened, after the initial lockdown. Throughout the year, how was your timetable like? You already told me that teachers made themselves available throughout the day and night. So how was your timetable like? And, you know, were there any changes? How frequently did you attend? In terms of the schooling activities, were there any changes? Tando.
There was a few changes, but not major. So our school was basically was both a primary and a high school. So they made sure that all matriculants are at school every single day. And then from grade R to grade 11, they would be the ones using the platooning system where one grade will come and the other grade wouldn't come. But with us, before lockdown, we had school from 7 in the morning to roughly 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. But when the lockdown started, school was strictly from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. No one was allowed to stay after 2. You had to be at home. So we had just less hours physically when we went back, but otherwise everything was still the same.
So if that is less hours, like under normal circumstances, at what time do you guys go to school? Isn't to the end of the day for learners in your school?
It usually is, well, all the time. But then after 2, that's when we'd have extra lessons. You could consult physically. But because of the COVID, we had to be at home 24/7. Well, from 2 p.m.
All right, interesting. Nompumelelo, I think we lost Gia, but she'll catch up. We still have a lot of questions to cover anyway. What about you, Nompumelelo? How was the proceedings after lockdown? How often did you go to school, and how was your timetable like, and so on and so forth? If you can just enlighten us on that.
Okay, so when we went back to school, our classes like they carried on as usual. But then on the first week, we didn't have any extra classes and extra lessons. So we just got into school at 7 p.m. and then until 3 p.m. So in the next week, we started having extra classes, but we didn't have morning classes because before lockdown, when we had morning classes, they could like integrate like maybe 2 classes or 3 classes into one class so that we can attend. But then they changed that after Corona because we couldn't have too many people in one class. So we didn't have morning classes anymore. But a week later, after we reopened, we had extra classes, the afternoon classes, where we had like different teachers like doing different subjects each day. So our timetable basically remained the same because we still went to school every day, unlike the other grades, because we had more to cover than them. And Tina, we didn't like have any cutting of the content, so we had to go to school every day, unlike everybody else.
So I feel like, observing your guys' responses, Tando and Mpumelelo, that Tando, you guys continued and without much change because already you had been learning even during the lockdown. And Mpumelelo, you guys had to now stretch. You learned until, at what time on an estimation?
At school, we usually start from about 7:45, and then school ends at 2:45.
Oh, okay. Even after
after Corona, yes, after the lockdown, after everything, it was still like that.
all right, no problem. So I guess then it's kind of similar with Tando's experience. So guys, I just want to find out as well from you guys. So you already told me that, for instance, Kia, the communication between the school and the students and the parents were made via email, right? What about you, Tando? How did you receive communications from the school, and how would you communicate with the school? And Mpumelelo, you already told us that it was via WhatsApp, right?
It was via WhatsApp for us, like for educational purposes, but then they sent direct messages to our parents for meetings and school-related stuff.
Phone calls.
No, messages, like direct
Messages on the phone, sorry.
on the phone instead
Text.
of it.
Okay, no problem. Tando?
With us, they still remained using their normal systems. They use the emails. There was also a portal called Adana. It's an app where there's easier contact with teachers, parents, and school administrators. So everything was still running smoothly. But then they also added WhatsApp, where they had group chats with parents so that easier communication could take place.
So in that app, already parents and learners were familiar with working around that app and communicating using that app, and so you just continued during the COVID period without much distraction.
Yes, but can I just make a quick can I make a quick correction? It was just an app for parents and teachers. Learners didn't have access to that app or anything. That's where our reports would be loaded. That's where they'd announce certain things. That's when they'd have meetings and stuff.
I know. That's interesting. I'm getting a lot from you guys. So I just want to know also that the COVID-19 pandemic, especially on education and also in many other aspects, was very disruptive. And obviously, even if we feel a sense of smooth running in, Tando's experience, but I'm sure there was some form of, unfamiliarity with the period itself. And there was a lot of disequilibrium in how the education system is run on schools, and it of course shocked the systems of teachers and up to the ministry. So how do you guys feel, on an overall analysis, how did your various schools respond to this disruption? Do you feel like, when you went back and you were going on with school, that your school had a plan, or that even if it was uncertain, which is understandable, but do you feel like they kind of got a balance or state of equilibrium? Were you confident in the recovery plan, maybe, um, or was there a lot of uncertainty and a lot of irregularity, just on an overall, as you perceive, looking back at how things went through? Do you think your school just had it on, like they were just doing much as they could to actually, gain the rhythm back? Mpumelelo, how do you feel?
Well, at my school, they tried, they had like a recovery plan, and it worked because when we went back to school, they had already, because before COVID, we had 3 matric classes, and after COVID, we had 6 matric classes. So they had already implemented social distancing in the classes. And when we came back, we had all the PPEs that we needed. There were sanitizers, and we were also provided with masks from school. And they usually took our temperatures each and every morning. So the recovery plan worked out very well. There were no too many uncertainties from school after we went back to school.
So I can imagine, even if the school gets like its rhythm and balance, even you as a student, you kind of quickly get your rhythm and balance back to, I wouldn't say normal, but more or less you kind of adjust. Yeah. Thando, how did you feel about the plan that your school had?
I really think the school did enough research, and they did their absolute best, because when we went back, everything was to do, like everything was perfect. They made sure that everyone felt safe. They made sure that no one had any sense of uncertainty. No one felt uncomfortable. No one felt like, okay, you know what, I need to be at home. They made sure that we felt that we were in a very safe environment and that we don't pose a risk to our parents at home as well. When we got back, since we were always a small school and the matric group being one of the smallest, our classes weren't really that packed. I think the maximum amount of learners in a class was roughly between 21 and 27 learners. So implementing the social distancing was not difficult at all. They made sure that we had everything that we needed, like masks, hand sanitizer. Everything was according to the regulations that were given.
All right, interesting. I did have a separate question on the measures that were taken by your schools in order to prevent the spread of COVID. But I like that you guys have already covered that in your answer, in terms of the response of your school to COVID. And I just feel like your answers are deal mostly with those measures. And I'm not sure if you guys, how do you feel about then the plan in terms of covering the content and ensuring that you guys get quality education, as opposed to just covering content and not getting quality effective education and the support academically as well? Do you guys have the same feeling that your schools did the best?
I truly believe that my school did the best. But to keep in mind that with us being a private school, everything had to be according to the IEB. So when the IEB would say that, okay, tests for other grades, of course, have to be weighed in a certain manner because they didn't get enough contact learning. They made sure that was put in place. So they wouldn't necessarily draw up their own plan, but they implement their plans in what was given by the
In
independent.
line with the,
Yes.
oh, sure, get it. Now, Mpumelelo, you feel like as well your school did the best that they could. Yeah. No,
Yes,
lovely ladies.
I feel like they
continue.
did the best they could, although it was overwhelming at first having to adjust, but they did their best.
You did. No, that is lovely, ladies. And of course, I mean, it was a challenging period. And I do as well feel that it is understandable if, you know, there were challenges that you faced and that your school faced during the period that was unique to that period. Do you want to maybe share one of those? Did you guys feel like you know, what, or rather, what was the greatest challenge that you personally faced, you know, as you were exercising maybe remote learning at first, or as you were adjusting to learning under COVID, even as you were going to school? What was the greatest challenge that each of you faced? Let's start with Nompumelelo.
Okay. The greatest challenge that I faced was coping with the pace. Like the pace was very fast because they knew they had more content to cover in a short period of time. So I had to like put in more effort into studying, more hours into studying, because things were getting overwhelming. So my challenge was actually adjusting with the pace. That was my challenge.
All right, and congratulations. I mean, you already got to university, which means that worked out well. Tando, what was your challenge?
I think my greatest challenge was fully moving to remote learning. As much as we had both physical and remote learning before COVID, having school remotely 24/7 was very challenging. You had to be very disciplined. You had to want to learn in order for you to learn and grasp everything that was being taught. So everything did run smoothly, but it was exhausting, it was tiring. The amount of hours that you had to put in, you had to work overly than any other grade. As much as you're in matric, yes, but the pressure was hectic. Everything was just too overwhelming.
All right, now I understand. Also, congratulations to you. I mean, you got to varsity, which means you did your absolute best. You should be proud of yourself. Just quick, we're running out of time. I'd like to also know so we spoke more about the school and how the school engaged learning and teaching. How was it for you guys at home? You know, how were your parents, you know, assisting you? How were they taking it? And as well as, did you guys stick to the schedules? How were you guys, you know, managing that period now from the perspective of you know, your home environment? Were there any challenges just unique to that?
May I answer, or Nompumelelo first?
Yes, sorry, yes, Tanda, you can go ahead.
I think I'm truly blessed to have a family that's always been supportive and loving. So it really wasn't difficult. I mean, I had my mom and my dad always waking up when I need to wake up. If I had to study at midnight, my parents would make sure that I'm up. My brother would make sure that, okay, you know what, it's quiet, he's not making a noise. So my whole family literally adjusted to the situation and understood I'm in matric and I need to be very serious. So everything was amazing.
Lovely, you know, they're such a lovely bunch, right? Yes. Tanda, what about you?
It's Nompumelelo. Okay.
Oh, sorry, Nompumelelo.
Yeah. So it was basically the same because I live with my grandmother, so she was very supportive because she knows
That's
it's
lovely.
my last year, my matric year, so I have to put in more efforts. And every time when I had to study, they gave me the space to study, and they used to like provide me with additional resources such as data so that I can be able to access everything from WhatsApp and all that. So my family was basically supportive.
How is load shedding like for you?
Oh no,
Because I know it's a problem.
yes,
in,
it's a problem. Load shedding is a problem. So every time when we had load shedding, like we have this, I don't know what they call them, but then there are these lights. When the power goes off, the light automatically goes on.
comes on. Okay.
Yeah, so I had
No,
like
that
we
is
had
lovely. Ah, man, I wish we could continue. You know, it's so surprising that I've never actually had a conversation with learners about this. We talk about, we do talk about education under COVID. It's very academic and trying to think about what are the theories or solutions, but we never, take time to hear students on how the experiences were like. And I'm so grateful to have this conversation with you. And obviously, we can see that already COVID-19 does exacerbate already existing kind of inequalities when it comes to education. But I'm so glad as well that you guys did the best that you could under the situation. Anything that you'd like to add? What do you feel? Or let me just say, just like 30 seconds each, right? And then we're done. What do you guys feel about remote learning? Do you guys feel like this is the new normal post-COVID? And do you guys feel like, this actually could work for learners? Tando?
It is the new normal, but it's very sad and unfair that the Department of Education blatantly shows that they disregard learners. They disregard the way things should be. Had they been a competent department, then they would have made sure that every learner was given the opportunity to learn. Everyone would have been able to learn at the same pace and at the same time. But because we don't have that in South Africa, it's
Yeah.
sad.
It was sad. Nompumelelo?
Well, can you please ask the question again?
All right. Do you feel like we should continue learning online? Do you think that, and I'm saying this at the basic level of education. I know higher learning is something that they're used to.
So I think online learning should be the new thing because it's more convenient learning online because you can do things at your own time.
All right.
It doesn't matter what time it is. You can still do things at 12, and you can like for example, when like there's a video of an explanation about something, you can watch that video as many times as you like in order to understand. And with contact classes, like being physical with the teacher only talks once and you have to listen and understand at that time. And even if you ask, you can only ask, okay, when you ask a person, you can't ask 1,000 times. You can only ask to a certain limit. So with the videos, you just listen to the videos as long as you want.
Over and
so
over
I think
again.
online learning is kind of
Is
more
the new normal.
Should be.
No, thank you so much, Sorry to cut you. You were saying?
No,
it is the new normal.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies, for your time and for allowing us to have this conversation. I think we lost Gia, but I'll thank her as well in absentia for taking part in this interview. Ladies and gentlemen at home, thank you as well for taking your time to listen. We'll meet again next week at 7 p.m. with another conversation in the Blacknificent Show. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for hosting us.
Thank you. Bye.